When a mother whispers, "I love you, my babies," those are words that melt your heart. But on May 2nd, 2000, in an Arkansas execution chamber, those same words sent chills down everyone's spine, because they came from Christina Riggs, a 28-year-old nurse, a mother of two, and the first woman executed in Arkansas since 1845. Yeah, let that sink in. 155 years, and then boom, a nurse, not a serial monster or mob assassin, walks in and volunteers to die. How the hell did we get here? This is the story of a woman trained to save lives who used those same medical skills to end them, and then tried to erase herself from the world. It's a story that tore Arkansas apart, left psychologists debating for decades, and forced people to ask, can someone be both a loving mother and a killer? Christina Riggs didn't grow up with evil in her eyes. Born in 1971 in Lawton, Oklahoma, she had the same messy mix of innocence and trouble most kids do. But behind closed doors, things got dark early. She later claimed she'd been abused as a child, and that pain, that violation, would shadow every relationship she ever had. By 14, she was numbing that pain. Cigarettes, alcohol, weed, the whole teenage escape starter pack. By 16, she was pregnant. The baby was given up for adoption, but that decision carved a scar that never healed. It's wild when you think about it, a teenager trying to fix trauma by creating life, only to lose that life before it ever even began. After high school, Christina tried to reboot. She trained as a licensed practical nurse, a career that gave her a purpose, caring for people, healing wounds. Ironically, the same knowledge that made her good at saving others would one day make her lethal to herself. She worked at a Veterans Administration hospital, then home health, moving from patient to patient like a quiet ghost of empathy. In 1991, she became pregnant again, a boy she named Justin Dalton Thomas. Justin's father? Gone, not even in the picture. But before the baby was born, Christina met John Riggs, charming, funny, the kind of guy who looked solid on paper. They married in 1993, had a daughter, Shelby Alexis, in 1994, and for a moment it looked like that TV commercial version of happiness. But real life doesn't care about TV scripts. By 1995, the couple had moved to Sherwood, Arkansas, near her mom. She got a stable job at Baptist Hospital, pulling long shifts, doing what nurses do, fixing other people's emergencies. And yet, at home, her own emergency was brewing. John Riggs wasn't the monster type, but there was tension. Christina claimed he once hit little Justin, and that was it. Marriage over. She took the kids, moved on, and tried to stay strong. Except she wasn't strong anymore. Depression hit like a freight train. She was working stressful nights, sometimes exposed to trauma cases that would crack even seasoned nurses. Reports say she helped care for bombing victims from the Oklahoma City blast, and that scene burned into her psyche. Flashbacks, nightmares, and an emptiness that made even the sound of her kids laughing feel distant. And here's where you start to see the breakdown. She's a single mom, 2 toddlers, a job that drains her emotionally, no partner, no real support system, and a brain screaming, "You're failing." Every day she's surrounded by medicine, by the very tools of life and death, and in that blur of exhaustion and hopelessness, an idea starts forming. Not an impulsive, violent idea, a clinical one. The same way you'd plan a hospital procedure, Christina started planning an escape from her pain, from her guilt, from life itself. She wasn't ranting or raving, she was quiet. People at work didn't notice anything off, but inside she was setting up the final act. She began gathering drugs, potassium chloride, morphine, amitriptyline, things nurses handle daily, but civilians can't even spell. To her, these weren't chemicals, they were a way out. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, no one's saying she was some evil genius. If anything, this was a textbook case of suicidal ideation meeting medical access. And that combo? Deadly. By early November 1997, Christina Riggs had decided the world would be better off without her, and tragically without her kids. She convinced herself that if she left them behind, they'd suffer. So she built the logic of a doomed parent. If I go, they go too. That's not rational, but depression doesn't play fair. November 4th, 1997. A quiet night in Sherwood, Arkansas. 2 kids tucked into bed, cartoons long over, the kind of calm that feels sacred in a home. And somewhere in that silence, Christina prepped her syringes. She injected 5-year-old Justin first with potassium chloride. It's meant to stop the heart. That's what they use in executions, ironically. But she didn't dilute it. The burning pain ripped through his veins and he started to struggle. In panic, she tried to ease it with morphine. It didn't work, so she did the unthinkable. She smothered him. Then came Shelby, just 2 years old. After seeing what Justin went through, Christina couldn't bring herself to use the needle again. She covered her daughter's face and pressed down. Moments later, both children were gone. She laid them side by side on her bed, covered them with a blanket, and kissed their foreheads.
Then she wrote suicide notes, apologies, explanations that no one could ever understand, and swallowed 28 amitriptyline pills, injecting herself with the same potassium that failed earlier. She expected darkness, peace, nothingness. 19 hours later, her mother found her unconscious on the floor. Christina Riggs, the nurse, the mother, the would-be victim of her own plan, had survived. Her children had not. The courtroom was cold, but the atmosphere was electric, thick with tension, grief, and disbelief. Christina Riggs sat motionless, almost eerily calm, as the prosecution laid out every haunting detail of that November night. They painted her not as a grieving mother, but as a calculating one. A woman who planned the unthinkable and followed through with it. The jury heard about the syringes, the medication, the note, and that final attempt to take her own life. The defense, on the other hand, didn't try to deny what she'd done. Their argument wasn't what happened, it was why. They told the jury about Christina's crushing depression, the endless night shifts, the exhaustion, the guilt, and how she'd lost faith in the system that once helped her save lives. They spoke of a mother whose mind had become her own worst enemy. But the jury wasn't there to heal wounds. They were there to deliver justice. And after 3 hours of deliberation, they came back with a verdict. Guilty of capital murder. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Christina didn't plead for mercy. She didn't cry. She simply said, "I knew what I did was wrong. I accept whatever comes." It was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that feels like it's holding its breath. Then came the words that sealed her fate. Christina Marie Riggs, you are hereby sentenced to death by lethal injection. And just like that, the nurse who once gave life through medicine would now lose her own to it. In the years that followed, Christina refused to appeal her sentence. She told her lawyer she didn't want to fight it. She believed she deserved to die. That's right. In a world where most inmates spend decades trying to avoid execution, she volunteered for it. She wrote to the court saying she was ready to go and that the only peace she could find was through acceptance. Even her mother begged her to appeal, saying, "You're still my daughter. You still matter." But Christina refused. When reporters asked why, she replied, "I don't want to live with what I've done. I just want it to end." It's hard to know if that was guilt talking or the remnants of a broken mind. Maybe both. As her execution date neared, Christina began to spend more time in her cell reading the Bible. She received letters from strangers, some offering forgiveness, others filled with anger. She reportedly wrote back to a few, thanking them for their prayers and saying she'd found peace.
But there's something chilling about how calm she seemed, like she was already gone long before the needle ever touched her arm. The clock struck 9 p.m. Christina Riggs was led into the death chamber. She wore a simple white t-shirt and glasses. There were no tears, no last-minute pleas. When asked if she had any final words, she said softly, "I love my family. I'm sorry for what I did. I hope my children are in a better place." Then she added something that would stay with the witnesses forever. "Please don't ever forget them, or me." As the drugs began to flow, her breathing slowed. Within minutes, she was gone. It was over. The case of Christina Riggs left Arkansas and the entire nation with a heavy question. Was she a cold-blooded killer who deserved the ultimate punishment? Or a broken mother whose untreated pain turned deadly? No matter how you answer, one truth remains. What happened in that small Arkansas home wasn't just the end of two young lives. It was the collapse of a woman's soul. A tragedy that reminds us that mental illness doesn't always look like chaos. It sometimes looks like a nurse, a mother, someone quietly drowning behind a smile. And by the time anyone notices, it's already too late.